Hi, and welcome back to Fortunate Beauty. Today I'm going to talk about what happened immediately after I was disfellowshipped from the Jehovah Witness congregation. The next morning I went to work and I was attacked by a coworker who was a Jehovah's Witness. The where I worked, it was like a social service agency. We did community work, working with the elderly and the disabled. So it was nurses and a team of social workers. So each team of 7 social workers had a nurse consultant. So if they had questions, because the elderly, they have social service issues, but so many health issues. So there was a nurse assigned to every team that the social workers could bring their medical questions to. I loved the job. I loved it. So I was working there about a year, and when I first started there, I did was talking to some other people at the job, just getting to know everyone. Everyone was really friendly. I loved it. And I found out that there was another woman in my department that was a Jehovah's Witness. I knew of her. I spoke to her. She wasn't on my team, so she never worked. I never worked closely with her. So when someone else said, "Oh, there's someone else that's a Jehovah's Witness," so I was like, "What?" I go over and just found out you're a Jehovah's Witness. I didn't know that. And it turned out that she knew I was a Jehovah's Witness. She knew what congregation I went to. Like she already knew about me. So I was like, this is peculiar. Like I'm new here. You've been here for years. I come in. She already knew I was a Jehovah's Witness, but never tried to connect with me. So I spent, I was like, okay, I wonder what this is about. So then I'm like, maybe it's because I'm a nurse and she's a social worker. There was some petty stuff that would go on at the job between the nurses and the social workers. Thank God I was able to stay out of it. I was able to get along with everyone, but I was thinking maybe she just wasn't over the fact that we weren't supposedly in the same clique. But there was like the social worker clique, the nurse clique. I was had fun with everybody. If we could talk hair, shoes, vacations, you were my clique. um, but and I just thought, since we're both Jehovah's Witnesses, and she had been a Jehovah's Witness for a long time, like I think she might have been raised in it. She was married, she had a daughter. Like I felt like our sisterhood as Jehovah's Witnesses should have over surpassed any little petty thing that was going on at the job regarding the social workers and the nurses. But as time went on, that I found out she was a Jehovah's Witness really early. So as time went on, we still never became friends. And it was odd too, because what would happen is each team of social workers had their nurse. So if your nurse wasn't available, you could freely go to another nurse and ask the question you had. Everybody came to me. There were some nurses that, because a lot of our social workers were young, were my age. Um, Most of our clients were in the inner city. I was from the inner city. The social workers were mostly from the suburbs, young college graduates that they didn't know anything about the inner city. So they would come to me. Does Chestnut Street go up? Does Market Street go down? Everyone did not have a phone and a GPS at the time. So you had to talk to people about how do you get there and ask for directions and write them down. So I was the go-to person not only for medical consultations, nursing consultations, but because I lived in the hood where they had to go. So she would never come and consult with me. She would never come, and nurse her nurse's office was right next door to my office. The nurses had offices because you were discussing private medical information, so we had to be able to close the door. She would, if her nurse wasn't there, she would go find another nurse. And I noticed that. So I was like, okay, we're not going to be friends. That's okay. Well, as I talked about in another video, when I got disfellowship, there was this horrible meeting that I went to one evening late. I didn't get home till maybe 9, 10 o'clock. The next morning, I get to work 8 a.m. And I get in, I'm putting down my oatmeal and my bag, and she comes walking into my office. Well, I'm like, hey, good morning. She's like, well, I, I just came to tell you that I understand that you've been disfellowshipped. And even though we still have to work together, we work here. Um, you understand what it means, the fact that you're disfellowship, that I am not going to talk to you unless it is related to work. I'm in my mind as she's talking, in my mind, I'm like, what? You didn't even talk to me when I was a good Jehovah's Witness. You never came to my office when I was a good witness these past 9 months that we've worked so closely together. You weren't interested in helping me as a young woman. What about the Titus 2 woman? You're supposed to come and mentor the young woman. You didn't come to help me navigate my way, but it's you. How in the world did you hear? This woman lived in a part of Philadelphia called Germantown. I rarely went to Germantown. I lived in West Philadelphia, not where Will Smith is from. Everybody says that. He lived in the nice part of Philadelphia, West Philadelphia. Where I lived, it was bad. I knew nothing about Germantown, didn't know what congregation she went to. How did she hear in approximately 12 hours? And we're talking about overnight hours when people should have been asleep. How did she hear that I have been disfellowshipped, that she's coming into my office at 8 a.m.? So all that goes through my mind. Let me tell you, the West Philly came out of me. I stood up from my desk. I said, how dare you? This is my place of work. HR rules dictate that you cannot harass me on the basis of. She starts backing out of my office. She starts backing out of my office. And I felt so empowered. And I said, HR rules dictate you cannot harass me on my sexual preference, my health, or my religion or race. I consider this harassment. So she's backing out my office. I'm walking out following her, reciting this to her, the HR rules. And she gets to her cubicle and sits down. I'm standing there still. I said, you will consult with me if you need nursing consultation, but don't you dare bring up my choice of religion again, or we will be meeting with HR. I want you guys to know the harassment happens everywhere, not only in your neighborhood, not in your home, but even on your job. Don't let it get you down if this happens to you and you are harassed because you have chosen to leave the Jehovah Witness organization. Stand up for yourself. Know the laws at your company, and you use those laws to protect you. You pray before you go in your job if you have to deal with a Jehovah's Witness that's trying to treat you bad and harass you on your job. They're not permitted to do that. They are not permitted to do that. And you stand up for yourself. Don't feel ashamed. You let them know that you're not going to stand for it, and you have the HR laws protecting you. So that was that. I walked to my back to my office. Now, the cubicles, there's 50 cubicles. So a lot of people witnessed this interaction. She actually had to get up, and she got up from her cubicle and she went to the bathroom. I didn't follow her to the bathroom. I went back to my office. So all these people that were there, because a lot of people worked in the field, but some people were there and they witnessed this exchange. Let me tell you how God blessed me. I had one woman who was a secretary, so each team had a secretary. She was not my secretary. I never talked to this woman. She wasn't even my backup secretary, because you have a backup. She wasn't my backup. She came a few days later and brought me a book by Marianne Williamson, and it's about spiritual growth, connecting with God, healing your mind. Look at God bless me. I had never heard of these type of uh, being in touch with yourself and finding yourself in listening to what God wants for you. A couple days later, she brought me that book. It was A Course in Miracles. She didn't let me have it. She said I could borrow it. And then I was able to get a copy from the library. And then later I was like, okay, this is a gem, and kept it for myself. Another person who was a social work supervisor. Sorry, my kids are at their homeschool classes. I have to keep an eye out for what's going on. She was a social work supervisor. So I never had to uh, deal with her. She comes to my office one day and she says, I don't want to offend you. But she and I got along, but we never talked about religion. She said, I don't want to offend you, but I know that something happened with your religion, and I'm not sure if you have a Bible. Let me give you this King James version of the Bible. These people were loving on me. They had no connection to me except at the place at work, just when we went to work every day. But they were concerned because they knew, not all the way, but they knew that I had been kicked out of my religion and just coming to me, trying to help me at my job. That was God using them to help me. I ended up staying at that job, and me and Jermaine got married. Those people threw me a huge bridal shower, loved on me, cards of prayers and blessings. Those blessings trickle down to my marriage today. Then I got pregnant with my daughter. When I tell you, they showered my daughter with so many presents, handmade crochet, food for when I was home with her after I had her. These people, the Jehovah Witnesses, nothing. I can't even tell you all the things that my mom and I did out of love for other Jehovah's Witnesses over the 20 years. Then when my mother got sick with cancer, that job was there for me. Everybody covered my cases because even though I had family medical leave, I still had to review my cases. All those so-called worldly nurses covered my cases. When I would come back from taking my mom to chemo with my baby, because I had to take my baby with me to radiation, to chemo, all the worldly nurses made sure my cases were clear. I didn't walk into cases filed high because I was going at a radiation department appointment. I'm so sorry. Those people were there for me. All I saw from the Jehovah Witnesses was being glad for my supposed downfall. But it wasn't my downfall, it was my come up. Stand up for yourself, stay true to yourself. If God is leading you, go with that. And I do recommend that book by Marianne Williamson. I have to dig mine out, or just some other books that I was able to read that helped me. Um, so move on. There is joy, there is hope. God will use the people you least expect to bless you. They will bless you. Okay.